The gory days are here to stay, the 80s horror show. Take a stroll down memory's lane, it's time to start the show. The gory days, the gory days, the gory days, the gory days.
Welcome to the Gory Days, the show where we take a stroll down memory's lane to remember our favorite horror movies from the 1980s and early 1990s. When I started this podcast, I had no intention of doing critically acclaimed films because they have been done around the world. Every other podcast and their grandmother has done The Shining. I am going to try my hardest to never do The Shining because there have been documentaries on it. There's been documentaries on the movie that we're talking about today, Silence of the Lambs. But before we get into any of that, I want to introduce the horrible person that brought this movie into me. He's looking at me like, and he's looking around the room like, oh my gosh, what have I done? What have I walked myself into? No worries, I'm totally kidding. The movie today is Silence of the Lambs, and I couldn't be happier because it's an amazing film, and I was racking my brain trying to remember where I saw it the first time, but my guest today is a person that I met out in the world. He's based here in LA, a writer. Maybe we'll find out if he's directed anything and where we can find more of his work. Please welcome to the show, Michael Batchelder. How you doing?
Good, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I mentioned just a moment ago that we met at trivia night.
J Hart's Trivia.
Yeah, at Idle Hour, the barrel bar thing, right?
Right, yeah.
I'd never been there before, but it's pretty cool, and I haven't been since.
I feel like we did pretty good, but I don't think maybe we got third or fourth.
Did we place?
I think so.
Okay.
We I don't know. It's hard. I feel like we were dealing. I mean, it's all industry knowledge, and we're dealing with a crowd of movie experts. So
I thought we did pretty well. The questions got really hard.
I know. Yeah. Very specific.
And I was a Long Island iced tea in by the end. So I don't know if we placed or whatever. But the
I was
prizes,
just sticking with the beer.
But the prizes, I think, were. I saw they had Ninjago on Blu-ray and things like that. Like we're adults. We're like adults, ideally trying to get in the industry.
Exactly.
I don't want a C-rated Lego movie on my shelf. So, Michael, you're based here in L.A. Are you born and raised here?
No, I am from Omaha, Nebraska.
Oh.
And I'm actually wearing a Nebraska t-shirt right
represent.
now. Yeah.
Is that the shape of the state?
It's the state. It's for the viewers who can't see this, which is everybody.
Everybody.
The listeners, not the viewers. I'm wearing a shirt, just kind of by coincidence.
And it says, what is
the shape of Nebraska that says home.
That's awesome.
So I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. So it's
and that's the capital, right?
No, Lincoln's the capital,
okay.
but it's the biggest city. It's like 400,000.
Okay.
So,
that's always weird. It always turns out that the capital isn't actually a giant metropolitan hub. It's just grandfathered in.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So I've been out here. I moved out here like a year and a half ago. So lived in Omaha most of my life. Went to college there.
And were you doing writing there, or were you acting in like plays? What were you doing?
I was writing. I wrote for a small town newspaper or suburban newspaper. So there's the Omaha World Herald, and then they own Suburban News as well. So I was writing in their suburban division. So
how did you get that? Did you have to submit and apply?
I wrote for the school paper in college, and so I had samples, so then I just submitted them, and that's how I got it.
So are we talking like journalism? Like you'd have to go out and investigate why some kids were cheating on the SATs?
It was, I wouldn't say...
I guess that's high school.
I didn't really cover that. We did some sort of investigatory articles. I'm trying to think of what... I'm thinking of the articles I wrote in college, and I remember one was Meatless Monday meets mixed reactions. Because the cafeteria didn't have meat on Monday, and I basically interviewed students about their thoughts on this.
Did you come up with that headline, or was that...
Yeah, I did. I did. I think I did for that one, because sometimes the editor will come up with that one. But I got some alliteration in there.
What was the newspaper called?
The college newspaper, I went to Creighton University, so it was called the Creightonian.
Okay.
And then the paper I worked for afterwards was Suburban News Incorporated, but it was multiple. I wrote for like 5 different papers, basically.
Okay. And is this something that people subscribed to, or did they just end up everywhere, kind of thing?
Yeah, you could subscribe to it, but we passed. I mean, you could get them different places too. Like I think you could get them at 7-Eleven, at the library, or retirement homes. I feel like we had an older crowd that read our articles for sure. So
typically, older
yeah,
people
exactly.
are reading
Older
newspapers.
people still read the newspapers. So, but yeah, it was great experience.
Is that still happening? Do you know? Are you still keeping up with your cohorts back there?
Yeah, I'm still friends with a lot of the people who wrote for the paper. I don't really pay attention to the news back there because it isn't, unless you're living in Sarpy County, Nebraska, it isn't super relevant
Shout out
to me. Yeah. But I did write a script somewhat based on my experience. So
about being
found that,
a college writer?
Being just a newspaper writer after college. So
Okay.
yeah, it definitely came back into play. So yeah, but I was writing for a couple years there, and then I was like, I know I need to move to LA.
Okay.
I need to, screenwriting is really what I want to do. So.
And so your family's back in Nebraska?
Yeah, they are.
And so how did they react to you saying, I want to go to LA and it's time for me to take that plunge? Are they supportive?
Yeah, they were supportive.
Okay.
I think they were probably surprised I didn't mention it sooner. Like they were probably like, they're probably like expecting it to happen any day.
It's a scary, vulnerable thing.
Yeah, I have 3 older sisters. They all moved away for college and after college, so it wasn't like everyone in my family stayed in Omaha. So that it wasn't really that new for them.
So they're spread out too? Are they still in the States?
Yes, they're all in the States. I had a sister who worked in Nigeria, Ethiopia, Ghana. So
for humanitarian stuff, I hope?
Yeah, for humanitarian
Okay.
stuff. Yeah, definitely.
Mining or fracking? Or
no,
anything?
God, no. Yeah, it was for working for nonprofits.
Fantastic.
So yeah, me moving to LA was like nothing.
Sure.
In comparison.
Okay.
So
and what do they do? Your parents back in Nebraska?
they're retired now. My dad owned a printing company back there. So,
Cool.
yeah. So and my mom stayed at home. So
Did you ever get to do any creative writing for the newspaper, or did that kind of wait until you moved out here?
We would write editorials, but we didn't really. I got to use sort of my creative writing skills, but that was basically on the side. Like
Sure.
that was what I was doing.
There's not many screenplays
Afterwards.
in newspapers these days.
No, definitely not.
Okay, so you moved out to LA about a year and a half ago
Yes.
while your sisters are all over the place
Yeah.
saving the world.
Yeah.
And so you moved out here. Did you have a place? Did you have a job?
No, I didn't. I had never been to LA before.
Wow.
So yeah, I just packed up basically everything in
You
my
didn't visit
Ford Focus.
beforehand?
No, never visited. I was
Oh my God.
because I was like, if I don't like it, then I'm gonna like regret my decision. I'm like, whatever. I'm just gonna drive out. I don't care.
Oh, you drove? Wow.
Yeah, I drove cross country, and I was kind of like, I was like, this is my chance to see America. So I stopped at some national parks, like
Okay.
Zion National Park. My car died in the middle of the Nevada desert on a
That sounds like a horror
105-degree day. Oh yeah, it was like there were. Luckily I was close enough to Vegas that there were still some. It wasn't like completely in the middle of nowhere, but there was literally like sagebrush blowing by as I'm just like in the middle of the desert. I just like I couldn't. Yeah, so I had OnStar or not OnStar, AAA.
Okay.
So luckily, yeah, but yeah, that was like, and that was my second flat tire, like driving cross country that happened in the
Statistically,
middle of nowhere.
that's pretty good to make it cross country. Well, not necessarily New York to LA, but it's still a huge
Half the country, yeah.
Yeah, to only get 2 flat tires and your car break down once. What were you driving, if you don't mind me asking?
Ford Focus, which I'm still driving.
Okay, reliable, very reliable.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's all right.
You had a lot
It's
of
kind
time.
of. I feel like by LA standards, it's kind of a crappy car, but I'm just hoping that means it never gets stolen because it's just like there'll be a BMW next to it.
I don't know. This is a bubble too. Like
Yeah.
LA, especially Beverly Hills, like the kinds of cars you see driving around, and it's nuts.
Yeah, exactly.
I forgot what I was going to ask. I was going to.
Oh, sorry, I interrupted.
No worries. Do you have any pets?
I have not with me. My parents have a dog, but I no pets. I would like to get a dog sometime, or maybe a cat, but I don't know. I'm just not home enough.
I remember
so.
now. We're tracing your chronology here. So you
Oh,
moved
yeah,
out
yeah,
here.
yeah.
You had no job. You had no house.
Right.
You fixed your car. You came in
Yeah.
here under cover of night. And what happened?
Basically, I had my mom's cousin lived nearby, like or in Thousand Oaks.
Okay.
So
you have family
he was
here.
like, yeah, you can stay with us for a couple of months, which was definitely a big help. So,
Yeah.
and I luckily found a job relatively quickly.
Nice.
It was
How long were you unemployed?
a month.
Wow.
Less. And I know that is like, I mean, that I definitely lucked out because, you know, a lot of people are unemployed for a while, but I luckily it was my sister's friend from high school's friend.
That's how it happens.
So yeah, it's kind of a distant connection, but
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Small world, because your sister's friend from who knows where, Nebraska?
Nebraska.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah, there are a couple. I've met up with some other Nebraskans in L.A. But
Oh, cool. I guess you got to stay close to each
yeah,
other.
exactly.
So you got your living situation, and where was that first job?
It's actually the company I'm still at.
Oh, cool.
It's A. Smith and Co. It's an unscripted TV company. So, their biggest shows are American Ninja Warrior and Hell's Kitchen.
Are they producing these or distributing?
They're producing them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And so you've been there for about a year now?
Year and a half. So yeah, October 2017 is when I started.
Awesome. But
Yeah.
you want to be a writer.
Yes, I do. So yeah, I do want to move into scripted soon.
Do they? Oh, so unscripted, I imagine they don't take many scripted
No.
pitches from you.
They
Okay.
don't. Yeah, they don't take any. So
Okay,
it's
gotcha.
just. I mean, I have pitched some unscripted ideas, but yeah, I definitely want to get into scripted soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the name of the place again one more time?
A. Smith is like it's Arthur Smith and Co.
A. Smith. I don't know why I
Yeah.
heard that as Ace Smith the
Oh,
first
yeah,
time.
that's what it sounds like.
Unscripted. Very cool. So what do you like to write? You say you're a writer. What kind of genre? Or is it like, do you do TV shows? Do you do sketches? Do you do features? Not to pigeonhole you, but these are the kinds of questions people always ask.
I mean, I started off thinking I would do features, but then I have kind of leaned more into pilots lately. Mm-hmm. And more like hour-long dramas, kind of thriller-ish,
Okay.
mystery-ish. Yeah, and I just turned in 3 scripts for the all the writing fellowship that ended last night.
Oh,
so
nice.
I definitely was like turning everything in at like 10:30. So waiting. I honestly I thought it'd be worse. I thought it'd be turning it in at like 11:59, like right at the due date. But yeah, so I submitted 2 originals and a spec script of Killing Eve.
Oh, nice.
So great show if you haven't seen it.
I haven't, but I've heard
Yeah, it's
amazing
good.
things. Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched the first 5 minute, that first opening scene where Eve is with the girl in the ice cream shop.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
That was it. But I was like, I gotta watch more of this.
Yeah, you got to get back to it. And it's just, I mean, you can watch it so quickly because all those British shows are like 6 or 7 episodes a season.
What were the other 2 that you submitted?
I wrote a pilot. It was about a con artist who basically goes into hiding in a cult in Alaska, and
Right, what you know.
yeah, exactly, because that's my background. So I just want to reflect my life.
That's cool.
Yeah. So and then she kind of gets found by someone in the FBI who, instead of catching her, he was like, "I want you to work with me. Pretend you're a devoted follower. Take down this cult leader." And she has to basically pretend that she is a devout follower, while also kind of becoming a devout follower.
And this is psychological thriller drama, not comedy?
No, not
Okay.
comedy. You could make it a comedy. I feel like, yeah, that'd be taking another direction. And then the other script I wrote was was more based in my life because it was about a small town newspaper, a gay small town newspaper reporter in Nebraska. I mean, I changed the names and everything, but he basically there's this explosion at this factory, and he wants to find out what happens, and he ends up having he ends up hooking up with the closeted billionaire who owns the factory.
Oh my.
And so he's like, I need to use this relationship to my advantage. So it's a little like House of Cards, but I mean, definitely different location, different characters, different setting. But that was basically in tone that it's a little bit similar.
Okay.
So yeah, that was definitely based in reality. I told a friend jokingly that it was based on my affair with the Nebraska billionaire running for governor, and he took it seriously.
Oh, that didn't happen.
It did not happen. So I just want, and anyone who reads it and hears that it's based in reality, the writing for a newspaper part was based in reality, but not anything about the affair.
The rest is historical fantasy.
Yes, exactly. I don't know if you've seen so this billionaire runs for governor, and the Nebraska the governor of Nebraska, who's just awful.
Was he caught in an airport?
Is hideous. So I would never want to hook up with him. So yeah,
putting that out there.
Yeah, yeah.
No, that's
fascinating. That's my pilot.
Very cool. So for people for listeners out there who don't understand how the process works, so you write a pilot, ideally hoping that they pick it up. Does that mean that you have 10 episodes like drafted or an idea in your head? Because the dream is that they pick it up and it gets picked up into a show, and you'd be the showrunner.
Yeah, that is definitely the dream. I don't have. I have an idea of where the shows will go, a very rough outline,
Sure.
but I don't. It's not that detailed. Like I did write out like a couple sentences for. I said like 10 episodes a season.
Okay.
So I think I have a general idea. I have it written down. I don't know all the detail. I can't remember all the details of where I wanted to go off the top of my head. But yeah, I have somewhat of a plan.
Because I've always been curious about that. Obviously, TV and everything is a collaborative effort, but also the idea has to come ideally from one, maybe two, maybe three people who, and so like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I'll use as an example. Hilarious show, and the pilot, it starts, they show you the status quo, they establish like, here's what we're doing, and then by the end of it, they have character arcs where characters grow in a way that it's a cliffhanger, where it's like, is what they've learned going to stick? Mm-hmm. And then season 2 is where like they come into their own. And so I've always wondered if that's mapped out from like pilot pitch 1 is like, so this is what the show's about, and this is what we'll explore,
right.
And this is where we want them to end, and then it turns into, something else once the staff writers get in, or do they just come in with the idea and they're like, I don't know where these characters are gonna go, let's get 12 people to figure this out.
Yeah, I would never go into a pitch meeting having no idea where it's gonna go. Like, you should have some general idea. And you also, one of the things with the cult pilot that I mentioned, one of the problems I had earlier on was I was like, maybe in the first episode. Now I have to back up and explain more of the plot. So,
I love it.
She basically, it's like this woman who's on the run, but then she's like her brother is in a cult, and I was like I originally had the pilot like she was just trying to find out where he was and get to the cult, but then you have to show what a typical episode will be like.
Yeah,
and a typical episode is she's already in the cult. And so you can't. It needs to. And if she's just like looking for the cult, then it's like nobody knows what to expect when she actually gets to the cult. So that's why I was like, it needs to begin with her arriving in the cult. Otherwise, it's like kind of a waste. I mean, you can do that with a feature, but you can't really do that with a pilot. Otherwise, people don't know what to expect going forward. Especially
with a high concept of quote unquote cult. Every one of us has an idea because of TV and movies, but it's really important to establish what your idea of a cult is. Yeah, definitely. You can take a sip. It's okay if you want to grab some water. So you touched on something that I want to talk about, and let me know if it gets too personal, and this is the kind of stuff you don't want to get out on the podcast. Okay. But just like speaking for I'll use my I statements. Speaking for myself, I feel a responsibility to put forth positive gay incidental characters into the world. Yeah. That as a gay man, I feel a responsibility to make sure that if I'm putting pen to paper or finger to key, that I'm representing myself and other people in a positive light, mm-hmm. and in a neutral light. Like, and what I mean is to show them like, them being gay isn't going to save the day. Right, and it's not the most important part of their character. One show that I really admire is Special on Netflix, mm-hmm. Where the main character is a gay man with disabilities. And it's just like, I would never ever write a character like that because mm-hmm. that's not my experience. Like, I don't care how many people I interviewed and researched, I would never feel comfortable writing that. So I wonder, like, if you feel that same kind of compulsion to present people as a writer, recognizing that film and TV give us the rubric of what is normal in society, do you feel that responsibility? Or do you just write for fun? Do you just like writing? Am I thinking too much?
No, that is
like
something
I'm afraid of writing a woman,
right.
and you mentioned that, and
Yeah, so I would say I am careful about it, and I would always like welcome other people's opinions. Like I'm in a writers group, and if they, it's a diverse group, so if they had a problem with a certain character, I would definitely take that into consideration.
Like if they misrepresented a gay white male, you would like raise your hand and go, "That's not right." Or if somebody like,
well, if someone said you're misrepresenting being a gay white male and it wasn't a gay white male, I'd be like, "Well, you don't know what you're talking about because this is my experience."
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess when I look at like my pilot Off the Record, for example.
Oh, is that its title?
Yes,
I like that.
Yeah, it's the title for now. That could change, but I would say I do keep in mind that I would like to portray LGBT people positively, but also
QI plus.
Yes,
QIA plus. There's so many letters now.
Yeah, exactly. But my character does bad things and is complicated and is kind of unethical. Because those are the characters that I like writing. I like writing complicated people who, do the wrong thing, but, maybe have the best intentions. So
that's why I like 6 Feet Under.
Yeah, exactly. I would say I do keep that in mind, but I don't try to make all my gay characters just like saints, basically. Like they can be fucked up.
They can be flawed. Yeah,
flawed.
And in fact, that's more important is to show them as real people. That's why I love Modern Family. The gay couple in Modern Family is the most tumultuous.
Yeah,
and they have fights all the time because that's reality. My fiance and I fight all the time, and I couldn't love him more. So transitioning a little bit, what's your relationship with horror then? You've mentioned psychological thrillers and these dramas, but horror, where did that come into play? Or does it? Am I climbing up the wrong tree?
I would say I'm more into thrillers, but then I also don't always know where the line is. I like horror. Yeah, I wouldn't say I am like the horror expert. I still have I would probably mention some horror movies that I haven't seen, and you'd be like, "Oh my god, you haven't seen that?
That's totally
How dare
fine.
you get out of here?"
But yeah, I can put some arbitrary delineations. As a kid, I told people I was like, "Oh yeah, I don't like horror. I like psychological horror."
Yeah.
And in my mind, my reasoning was that I don't like gore or jump out scares.
Yeah.
I don't like scenes that are orchestrated in such a way that I am on the edge of my seat waiting for something to pop out behind a closet door. I like more of the cerebral horror of of sitting there and going like, oh my gosh, how could a person do that? How could someone be so desperate that they'd be willing to blank and like be wrestling with that? That I found way more interesting as a kid. And it's probably because my mom was really into procedural crime dramas. She loved Law and Order and CSI and Criminal Minds and all of those, and she still watches those. Some of them are still on. Law and Order SVU is still running.
I know, it's 27 years.
Yeah,
or something
and it's funny they've had to upgrade some of their plots to like with technology and stuff, with smart cars and things.
Yeah.
Like they have to demonize and make old people afraid of everything. Sorry, Mom, I didn't mean to call you old, but that's how I defined like psychological horror as opposed to standard horror. There's like the gore and there's tropes to it that they have to follow. That psychological horror has its own tropes. And so the movie that you brought, Silence of the Lambs, is a quintessential psychological horror.
Yeah.
Because there's maybe one jump out scare, and it's not... I wouldn't even call... No, there's no real like surprise moments. There's just a lot of tension.
Yeah, definitely more tension.
Yeah.
So, the scenes, I'm trying to think if there was really a jump out scare scene.
I'm trying to think too.
It's never like a total surprise. I'm thinking of the moment when
he attacks the police officers, I guess.
Yeah, but he's gonna do something,
Yeah.
so it's not totally like someone just jumping out of nowhere. I think that's a scary scene. And then for sure when Clarice is in the basement, Buffalo Bill's basement.
Sure.
That's scary when he's like, reaching out his hand, and all that.
And to your point, it's not the kind of tension where you're waiting for a big release and then laughing and talking to your neighbors.
Yeah.
It's like constant tension.
Yeah, it's tension basically from the moment it begins to the moment it ends, basically.
From the moment we see Hannibal, it's like 12 minutes in.
Yeah.
And then from the moment we see Buffalo Bill, I feel like the tension heightens even more of him trying to get the woman in his truck, that first scene that we see. Is that the first time we see him? Or do we see him in his lair sewing?
No, oh god, I watched this last night. I should remember because we see him sewing, but we don't see his face.
Yeah,
and then we see him through night vision goggles. I think that one is first.
I think you're right. Yeah. But anyway, we'll save that for the next segment.
Yeah.
Really quick though, what's your relationship to this movie specifically? Did you watch it at a really young age, or is it just one that is on your library of any favorite you could play in the middle of and watch all the way through?
I didn't watch it that early. Maybe late in high school or freshman year. I really got into movies. Freshman year of college, I would just rent dozens of movies from the library and just watch them in my dorm. And I can't remember exactly when I saw it. I remember always growing up knowing about it, seeing the references. I heard the references to Buffalo Bill's dance, and
the thing.
Put the fucking lotion in the basket.
Yeah, it puts the lotion on the
yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing, is this movie's unique in that it's so referenced. It's so ubiquitous that I remember when I was studying Roman history and Hannibal comes up, the guy who rode the elephants into, I was going to say Carth, but that's Game of Thrones.
Carthage?
Carthage, thank you. Is that where he rode them? Did I really retain all of that? Hannibal rode elephants?
He rode elephants across the Alps. Wait, no. Carthage is in Africa. Hold on.
Yeah,
I don't know what I'm talking about.
I think he crossed the Mediterranean sea with elephants, and that was the thing. Anyway, I remember reading that and putting together Hannibal, and thinking that character, that person who existed in history was a cannibal, and being so confused.
That makes sense though.
But it was referenced. It was referenced in Animaniacs, I want to say. It was everywhere. And so it muddles my brain. There were references on I Love the 90s, I think, where they were referenced fava beans and that stuff. So it's hard for me too to say when I watched it. I can't remember. I just wondered if you did.
I think it was early on. Or I mean, not early. 18 or 19. I had seen the poster forever, and I think it's one of the best movie posters ever. Just with the white face and the moth on the.
It's perplexing.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's just, I guess it's just one that I go back to. I think of certain things when I'm writing, and I guess I don't know how much we'll get into later, but
sure, let's go for it. I'll edit it out. If I hate it.
Okay, perfect. For example, I hate it when characters are just, or the protagonist is just things seem too easy for them, and the whole time Clarice, you can just see she's terrified and she's struggling, and I always want to make my characters go through just horrible situations and really struggle to get what they want, and there's just things like that aren't even I could be writing something that isn't even related to. Has nothing to do with Silence of the Lambs, and I could still go back to certain things from that movie.
That's interesting that you put it that way. Do you, and the answer may be no, consider these characters on the page? That's Clarice Starling, and it's nice to see Jodie Foster's portrayal of it, but obviously this character came from the book. Is that how there's an argument that they are one and the same at this point, that Jodie Foster is Clarice Starling.
Basically.
But... reading Harry Potter and watching the movies and going that's not who I pictured. This is a fun director's imagining, but it's not mine. Do you feel that connection as a writer to what's on the page, and the actor's job is nice, but it's the writer who really brought this to life?
Well, I haven't read the book.
Me neither.
Okay, I heard I need to read it sometime because I hear it's really good.
I heard Manhunter or Red Dragon. The first one is great.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. It's on my list. I don't know. I think it's a combination. I don't know if it's one more than the other. I mean, if Clarice hadn't, I don't think, no matter how good an actor is, if the script is terrible, then the performance probably might not be memorable.
That's
but
the thing.
there are also so many things because a lot of it is just close-ups of Clarice, and it's a lot that you can't really write, so it's just kind of her expressions and
her delivery.
Yeah, that so that which takes it to the next level. So it's a combination. I don't know if you can really separate it.
In my experience, it's just been fascinating to watch that dance of like a sentence can be said so many different ways, a million different ways. Like even the like, I didn't see that there. Like I didn't see that there. I didn't see that there. I didn't see that there. Like all of that, and that's not even playing into like, okay, what emotions are we playing in, introducing here? So as a kid, I always just thought it was silly, like what actors do. Like they just go up there and they say they pretend they're not. They pretend they're someone else.
Yeah.
But it's so much more of a responsibility than that. It's taking these words on a page and words from a director and somehow communicating it into the product that they all want. And that's a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
And some people,
definitely.
like, I don't think I could do that. I have a lot of respect for actors.
Do you have any acting experience?
I have improv experience.
Okay, gotcha.
And this show isn't about me, but yes, I was acting all through high school.
Okay,
Never
nice.
the lead, though. I was always Potiphar and Bob Cratchit. Never Ebenezer Scrooge.
I was even smaller characters than that.
Oh, did you act? What were you at?
Yeah, I was in a musical in high school, and I have a terrible singing voice. I don't know why I thought being in a musical would be a good idea.
The ensemble?
Yeah, I lip synced through all the performances because
You've Milli Vanilli'd it.
basically, yeah, because when we would sing in practice, luckily I didn't have any solos, but when we would sing in practice, like 12 of us would be singing, and the teacher, the director would be like, all right, someone's out of tune. Who is that? And then I would lip sync the next song, and then be like, all right, that's better. So I just lip synced for the rest of the time. I did have one line in the movie 42nd Street.
In the movie?
Not the movie. The Marion High School in Omaha performance, where I'm the janitor sweeping off stage, and the two people are talking on screen, and one of the characters, it takes place in like the 40s, so he's like, she's gonna be a star someday, and
That was pretty great.
yeah, and I say, that kid, and then they all turn to me, and I say, sorry, and I just sweep off stage, and I brought down the house with those two lines, and that was all I said.
That's pretty great.
Yeah.
And that kind of like background scene color is what made that show, I'm sure.
Probably, yeah. In a way, I was the star.
All right, well, when we come back, we're going to be diving headfirst into all things Silence of the Lambs. More Michael Batchelder, more Silence of the Lambs here on The Gory Days when we come back.
The Gory Days.
Welcome back to The Gory Days. Michael Batchelder is here, and the movie we're talking about is A Silence of the Lambs. I have it written down in front of me. I want to do a little timeline of the history here. So it's originally based on a book. Thomas Harris writes Red Dragon in 1981, introducing the world to Hannibal Lecter. The first film that gets made of it is Manhunter in 1986, directed by Michael Mann and starring Brian Cox. The first person to portray Hannibal Lecter on film, though they spelt his name Lecktor, Lector, which I thought was interesting. Finally, in 1988, Thomas Harris follows up his novel Red Dragon and his successful film Manhunter with The Silence of the Lambs, his sequel, inspired by the real-life relationship between University of Washington criminology professor Robert Keppel and serial killer Ted Bundy. Bundy helped Keppel investigate the Green River serial killings in Washington. Now, have you seen the Netflix thing about Ted Bundy?
No, I haven't. It
was super popular.
The tapes, right? Not
the Ted Bundy tapes.
I know there's a Zac Efron movie as well.
Yeah, not that one.
But yeah, no, I need to listen to that because I was just I was listening to a podcast about Silence of the Lambs recently that was saying how it was unspooled. I don't know if you've heard it, but they basically just watched like the AFI Top 100 movies, and they were like how Ted Bundy
Unspooled?
Yeah, Unspooled.
We should listen to that.
It's a good one, but yeah, they were talking about how Ted Bundy's capture was kind of it happened close to the same time as Silence of the Lambs coming out, and that's how it kind of helped stay in the zeitgeist, basically.
I can imagine, because, the idea of a master serial killer genius being utilized as a tool for law enforcement to catch other crazies is really cool on paper.
Yeah.
But really horrible in practice because, as I know now from those tapes, Ted Bundy was a psychopath.
Oh, yeah.
There was nothing redeemable about him. I don't care how handsome he is. I don't care, you Twitter people out there wanting to sleep with Ted Bundy. He's dead, and for good reason. He was a monster. But if nothing else, he inspired this amazing story of The Silence of the Lambs. It was interesting because
So he wasn't all bad.
that's something interesting. Is like if evil inspires like a creative endeavor that later like enhances society, then like does it balance out? He killed people.
Probably not. No. I'm just putting the record that I'm not pro Ted Bundy.
4 lives is equal to 5 Academy Awards. That's how it equals out.
That's a good trade-off.
So 1988, Silence of the Lambs comes out, and Jack Crawford, in fact, the FBI agent that's Clarice's boss, was based on real-life FBI special agent John Edward Douglas, who actually worked with Scott Glenn, the actor who played Jack Crawford in the movie, on his portrayal of a behavioral sciences unit person. Douglas, at the time of the film's release, was in the midst of working with Ted Bundy to try to catch the Green River. So like you just said, it was very prevalent on people's mind, especially important at a time when there was no real internet to advertise these kinds of things. It was just the newspaper, and it sounds like it was just kind of a happy accident. No one could have planned the marketing to coincide with a murder investigation.
Yeah,
back then.
definitely.
Do you think they did? Actually, now that I think about it, that sounds so evil.
Maybe. No, I don't think they did. But
No.
I actually didn't know that about the backstory. So that's really interesting.
Oh yeah, I found that interesting.
Because it's such a wild idea. Like, talk to this psychopath, will give you insight into another psychopath. So it sounds fictional, but it's like, I mean,
but something
it's real
about
life.
it also sounds timeless.
Yeah.
Like there's something allegorical about going to someone that can think like evil to catch evil, but isn't evil. Like The Blacklist is a show that with James Spader where they basically did the same thing, where he's like a psycho that they use. So it's become its own trope, and I'm wondering if this was the birth of it, or if that had been a thing before. Like, I have to imagine maybe even like ancient Greece, there was a crazy person that was helping the authorities catch other crazies. Anyway, in November of 1987, Ted Talley was brought on to write the adaptation. Ted Talley, who later went on to write Red Dragon, and Mission to Mars, and Shrek 2, and Madagascar.
Wow.
Same dude wrote this movie and won the Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay. He also won.
Definitely versatile.
Yeah, he won that. He won the Writers Guild of America Award, the Chicago Film Critics Award, and the Edgar Award for from Mystery Writers of America. So I'm not going to keep reading these accolades. This was an amazing movie. If you haven't seen it, shame on you. It's a quintessential psychological horror, and the only movie deemed a horror in the horror genre to ever win the Academy Award for Best Picture. Movies have been nominated since, Get Out most notably, but this is the only one in history to be a horror and win Best Picture. Now, I don't know what it would take for a horror movie to win Best Picture. It would have to be something like Get Out, where the horror is almost incidental to the like societal story. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if No Country for Old Men would be considered horror. From the top of my memory, that's like, I feel like that's the closest that they've gotten to another horror movie winning.
Yeah.
But I mean, it didn't, like, Silence of the Lambs didn't just, like, it swept the Academy Awards. Like, I think it was one of the only movies where, like, the top 5 awards, Best Actor, Best Director, Best Picture, Best Actress, they won all the top 5.
It was the third film in the history of the Oscars, even to this day, to sweep the top 5 major awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Adapted Screenplay. The only other 2 movies to do this was It Happened One Night, a movie in 1934 I've never heard of, and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest from 1975, starring Jack Nicholson. No other movie since has swept it, and I feel like that's kind of it's not indicative of a necessarily amazing film. Like, yes, it is, but also it has to do with the context of what the other films were running against it. And so I didn't go into that, but I did go into the movies that this had to compete with at the time.
Okay.
King Ralph, starring John Goodman, came out the next day after this, and Nothing But Trouble, starring John Candy and Chevy Chase, were also some of the movies that it had to compete with. But it didn't matter. This movie released and wasn't immediately a hit. It was a sleeper hit.
Yeah.
Which here in the industry means it didn't necessarily come out to critical acclaim, but it rose as it went on, and immediately and slowly, progressively gained success and critical acclaim. Directed by Jonathan Demme and written by Ted Talley, like I said, this movie is distributed by Orion Pictures, who I haven't seen since, they're coming back now with the Child's Play remake that comes out on June 21st. I'm very excited to see that. But Orion, I just remember the Family Guy joke of Adam West flying up into the sky, running into Orion's belt, and it turning into the Orion logo, and him saying, I knew it. You're nothing but a failed production company. And they're more than that. They're a distribution company.
True. I thought they were defunct. I thought they were out of business,
too. But they're back.
Apparently back. Okay, cool.
Yeah, they're back with Child's Play, starring Aubrey Plaza and Mark Hamill. Have you seen the stuff for that? The trailers for it?
I had no idea that either of those actors were in Child's Play.
Have you seen the original, the 1988?
No,
okay,
I haven't.
No worries.
No, I have not.
That was one of the ones that I didn't see for a long time as a kid because it was so scary, and just the image of Chucky, of what he looked like. And then I learned that the one that I was scared of was his what he looks like in Bride of Chucky, where he's all stitched and he's got big chunks of him missing. But in the original, he's a normal doll. So if I had just watched that, I wouldn't have been as scared for that long. So last but not least, the movie stars Clarice. The movie stars Jodie Foster.
She's a fictional character.
Yes, Clarice Starling does not exist. Jodie Foster exists, and she portrays Clarice Starling so well that it's like she's a real person. Anthony Hopkins, of course, plays Dr. Hannibal Lecter, surpassing Brian Cox, unfortunately. I didn't see that movie, but now when I think Hannibal Lecter, I think of Anthony Hopkins.
Brian Cox is great, though, in Succession. If you haven't seen that. Yeah.
Oh, he's great. He was great. What was he in? Troy. He was great in Troy. He plays Agamemnon in Troy. And Ted Levine as Buffalo Bill, a.k.a. James Gum, which he's barely in the movie, but he is freaking amazing in every scene that he's in. And his voice, too, just I don't remember where they establish it, but that Buffalo Bill, as an actual psychotic man, seems to regret what he's doing as he's doing it, and it's a beautiful performance of his. You look like you got something on your mind.
No, I was thinking of the line that I think is... I laugh every time when he's like, oh, wait, was she a great big fat person?
Yeah.
I don't know why. It gets me every time.
That's a pretty good impression.
I think they did a Family Guy of that. I think I heard it first on Family Guy.
Family Guy's referenced this movie a lot.
Well, yeah, multiple times.
Yeah. I remember Chris, when he's running for student council or whatever, and they play the embarrassing video of him reenacting the tuck.
Dance.
The dance and that song, Goodbye Horses, which is such a fun song by Q Lazarus. But I will never not think of this scene now. Yeah. Which I was amazed to find out was a cover. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't know that either. I think the music in the movie is so good. There's only two or three songs, but the score is perfect.
Yeah, music by Howard Shore, who listeners might recognize from other films that I did not go into research to write down. So let's get into the movie really quick, and then we can talk about our themes and what we thought about it. The movie follows Clarice Starling, a young FBI trainee. I don't know where in my mind, I thought she was an FBI agent. But she's a trainee.
Yeah, she's just a student, which I kind of remembered, but I kind of forgot about.
But it's so great because she carries that energy throughout the whole film of being unsure and constantly having an invisible eye on her because she's still trying to graduate.
Yeah,
and that's the final scene is they're celebrating her getting her badge finally. So all of this movie, all the crazy things she's doing is as a trainee. She's not even a full FBI agent. Clarice Starling seeks the advice of the imprisoned Dr. Hannibal Lecter, a brilliant psychiatrist and cannibalistic serial killer, to apprehend another serial killer known only as Buffalo Bill, who skins his female victims' corpses. So in a nutshell, without spoiling anything, that's the Wikipedia synopsis. But in a long story short, Buffalo Bill kidnaps a senator's daughter, and that's where things get crazy because Hannibal escapes when he's transferred to Tennessee to meet the senator. It's this big to-do when the senator shows up at like an airplane hangar, and that's supposed to be the one meeting that Hannibal negotiated, is that like, yes, I know who took the senator's daughter, but I'll only give the full name directly to the senator. Yeah. And that's, long story short, he escapes from that situation because he's not in the super max underground prison that he was in for 8 years. Yeah. He's in this Tennessee, like, it looks like they repurposed a dance hall or something.
Yeah, it's like a bird cage in the middle of this room. I don't know how realistic it is, but it looks great.
Yeah, it looks temporary, but still beefy enough for him. And so finally, Clarice accidentally finds Buffalo Bill through her own research, and the woman that she kidnapped, Catherine, who was the senator's daughter. And Clarice kills Buffalo Bill, and that's how she gets her medal. I was going to say not medal, her badge of FBI. And then the final twist ending is she gets a call from Hannibal Lecter, who where is he? He's been escaped. We don't know where he is, but he's chasing down the original like warden, the doctor that was keeping him in that prison for 8 years, Dr. Chilton, in some like maybe Ecuadorian city or whatever. And that's the story of Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
So obviously, it skipped around a lot of things in there, but
you got the basics.
Yeah. I don't like to go like bit by bit. But
exactly.
So I want to circle back to that first shot of Buffalo Bill where we see him with the night vision goggles, and those are like they literally don't come back until the very end, and it's just this like Chekhov's goggles that they plant in the beginning. But it's exactly Ted Bundy's tactic. Where at least what I learned from the Ted Bundy tapes on Netflix is Ted Bundy would show up with a fake cast, trying to get something cumbersome into his truck, and would go to various women. Like there was this one music festival apparently where a lot of people ID'd him as trying to get women into his truck to help him pack it up. And honestly, that's probably one of the earliest, scariest scenes to me because of how quickly it happens and how real that is, and how that probably happens every day or something similar to it, where like she was just coming home. She had her groceries and poof, she's gone. And no one knows. She just vanished without a trace. Like that happens all the time, I bet.
Yeah, and I love that how they cut that scene with the Tom Petty song, because it's so good how, she's just so carefree, and then, you see the goggles. Hopefully someone well, I don't know.
I don't think so. I think the cat died.
You think the cat died?
I do.
But
I think
she's only gone
starved.
Okay, how long cats can live like I mean, you can just leave food out for the... I don't know. I've never really thought about this.
I think that's why she has the dog at the end, because part of her knows her cat died, but she wants an animal again.
Maybe, that's
I don't know.
True.
That was my headcanon.
Hopefully she has... I don't know.
Not
the point, but yeah.
It made me really sad, though, because I was like, oh my God, that cat is going to die.
I know.
No one's going to feed that cat. And that's something that's so much like... so much sadder to me, and I feel like it comes from a primal place of animals not understanding like what's happening to them. Like the cat doesn't understand that she got kidnapped. She just thinks like, well, she's not coming home, and it's just so sad that animals don't understand those things.
I bet the cat lived. I bet it was able to get out of the window and like catch some mice or something.
I like your interpretation better. But yeah, I mentioned earlier that this movie wastes no time in getting us to see Hannibal. 12 minutes, 12 and a half minutes, we see Hannibal for the first time, and he's only in 4 scenes in the 4 scenes with Clarice. He might be in a couple without Clarice, like when he kills the police officers or in the ambulance, but he is barely in this movie, and he still won the Academy Award for Best Actor, which is pretty amazing. I think, let's see, I wrote down how much screen time he was in. That's right. With 24 minutes and 52 seconds of screen time, Anthony Hopkins' performance in this movie is the second shortest to ever win an Academy Award for Best Actor in a leading role. The last one before that was David Niven in Separate Tables, a movie in 1958. He beat him at 23 minutes and 39 seconds. So if you're out there wanting to win the Academy Award for Best Actor in a leading role, but don't want to work that hard, 23:39 is the number to beat.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely in like supporting actor range, but I mean, I think he definitely deserved lead.
I mean, he's on
for sure.
He's on some of the posters.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he was ranked AFI ranked him. American Film Institute ranked him the top villain of all time. So
Wow, over Darth Vader?
yeah, I think Darth Vader might have been second.
Wow.
The second or third.
Because that's the first one that I think of, like, as far as, like, genocidal monsters. Yeah,
Yeah.
Darth Vader. And it's funny, Hannibal Lecter hasn't had the treatment of, oh, wait, yes, he has. I was going to say Darth Vader is basically an anti-hero at this point. Like, we saw his story through the movies. And I was going to say, not so for Hannibal Lecter, but he had his TV show with Mads Mikkelsen.
Did, yeah, it was really good, yeah.
Yeah, it ran for 3 seasons, and I heard it was great. I haven't watched it, but I'm sure I'll find my way back there. But that is a prequel, obviously, and follows his relationship with the detective in Red Dragon that Edward Norton portrayed in the movie. That's a fun one, too. Have you seen that, Red Dragon, with Edward Norton and Ray Fiennes?
Oh, no, I don't. No, I haven't. Actually, no, I've seen the show, and Silence of the Lambs is the only other Hannibal movie I've seen.
Yeah, the movie Hannibal, the sequel to this, isn't that good.
Yeah.
I've seen it, and it's got some good visual effects, but it definitely doesn't. It doesn't get to the same cerebral level of this. Like when Clarice and Hannibal are talking to each other, I am hanging on every single word and every like nuance of both of their performances. Jodie Foster has such an uncanny way of showing like fake confidence. Of like portraying like, oh, I'm being confident, but behind all of it, you can see and feel her doubt and hesitancy, but still the pressure to have to hide all of that. Like those scenes where she's the only woman in a room with all of these men, and she still manages to stay stoic. She does such a good job in those performances.
Yeah. I think one of the scariest or most disturbing things about Silence of the Lambs is just the way he's able to just penetrate her defenses and get at the most vulnerable thing about a person
Almost immediately.
Yeah, and he does the same thing with the senator. He just says the absolute worst thing he could say to her, like just despicable. And he kind of does it in like a classy way. And I think that's kind of what people like. I think everyone's kind of scared that someone's just going to meet them and attack their weakest points. It's like a
Sherlock Holmes style of undressing somebody with with just their appearance. Like I've never met this person in my entire life, and they somehow know so much about me that they can undress me with my deepest fears or my insecurities. And I feel like it comes from, he's not just a psychopath. He's a doctor. He's a psychiatrist. He's a psychotherapist or a psychiatrist or both. And apparently had tenure for years being a corrupt psychologist who apparently was eating some of his patients. And like that plays into like his wordplay and his ability to come up with like, what are they, anagrams to mess with people, or even not to mess with them, to give them clues so that they can reach their conclusions. It's terrifying because part of you wants to be him. Part of you wants to be that conniving and intelligent and know everything, but he's so evil.
Yeah, you kind of want to be friends with him, but you're also scared of him at the same time. Maybe that's just me. I don't know, but
because he's so
I feel like I'm
too.
I want, like, I remember watching, especially with the TV show. I was like, he was so classy. He cooked his beautiful meals. I was like, I want to cook like him. I wanted to, like, his office is beautiful. He's just the classiest guy in the world, and it's just like you just can't look away from him because he's
so enigmatic.
And I mean, even knowing the things he did, it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, but it's like you still want to be him.
And visually, they portray that in such a great way, where Clarice is literally thrown into the lion's den with all of these crazies. They're literally crazies behind bars in these dark cells with like almost no light until she gets to the end of the hall where it's completely different. Yeah. It's bright, it's glass, It's pristine, it's clean, and he's just standing there in a white suit or in a white like prison jumper, and it's just like this, like, it's not what anyone ever would have expected. And how could you not be curious?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what Jack Crawford warns her. He's like, don't tell him anything personal, because, he runs with it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there's just, like, so many layers when you rewatch it. Like, just the comparison between, like, going from Miggs, the masturbating
multiple
guy,
Miggs.
multiple
God.
Miggs, to Hannibal, that contrast is just like insane.
And I
So
love how
stark.
he like finds that discourteous with the other other monsters. He's a monster too, but like he sees himself as better than them, and he's like, "Oh, I would never do that to you." And Clarice,
I mean, that is pretty rude to like.
it is. It's extremely rude. It's
throw your
horrific.
semen.
It's horrific, and she honestly deals with it way better than I would expect.
Yeah, no, I would be I'd be freaking
Probably
out.
like
But
vomit. I don't know. But yeah, and she runs back to him so that he can tell her some cryptic thing.
Yeah.
And it's great. The dead head moth down the throat thing seems bizarre. I wanted to bring that up because like they try to make it this. I'm sure it's in the book, but they try to make it this separate important thing. Like Ted Levine's Buffalo Bill is an insane person who hates himself, and Hannibal Lecter explains that he thinks that makes him a transvestite because he hates his identity, so he must be transsexual. Sorry, not transvestite. But obviously he's much, much worse than that, much more dangerous is what he explains. But there's, I forgot where I started this, but I'm going to change it into Clarice hates herself too. They established that they both have this identity hatred for themselves, where Buffalo Bill hates himself because he's psychotic. Clarice hates herself because she's white trash. Because,
exactly.
And that's what you were saying a second ago, is that he's able to like pinpoint this one thing that makes people most uncomfortable. And in Clarice's case, it's her heritage, is that she came from West Virginia, which I guess is white trash. Is West Virginia like really that backward? And
Well, I mean, it's rural and poor. I mean, it's Appalachia, so yeah. I mean, I'm not accusing West Virginia of being white trash at all, but like it has that reputation.
Okay, well, because Clarice, she has that accent. Jodie Foster obviously does. But it's when she like comes back to her car and cries about it that I was like, oh wow, she really does hate where she's from. And this whole FBI thing is her just running from her heritage and running from that barn in Montana where she had the baby lamb.
I would probably cry as soon as he started insulting me. I wouldn't make it out to the car. Like she is very strong for even having like a comeback. Like, can you turn that lens around on yourself? And so I mean, she's definitely like a force to be reckoned with.
And because I think that's in response to him doing the accent, and you can see how it like affects her. And I was interested to learn that was improvised.
Was it really? Wow!
That Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster were performing that scene, and he had the line slipped into the accent, and her reaction is genuine. And afterward, like thanked him for offending her because it got such a good reaction. And I realized, God, actors are fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Like you have to have something a little bit wrong with you to be a good actor. Like the best actors can turn on anguish and then turn it back off like a light, and it's like that. There's something there. So yeah, Buffalo Bill hunts like Ted Bundy, but he has a pit in his house. So Buffalo Bill is actually a combination of several real life serial killers. Let's see, I have that list here. 3 real-life serial killers. Ed Gein, who famously inspired the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, he skinned his victims. And when they caught him, he had like lampshades made from his victim's skin and couch covers and stuff. So he's part that. He's part Ted Bundy, who used the cast and manipulated women with like his charisma to get them into compromising situations. And then the third, who I'd never heard of, was Gary Heidnik, who kept women he kidnapped in a pit in his basement. So that's based in real life.
I knew Ed Gein and Ted Bundy. I didn't know about the other guy.
Yeah, Gary Heidnik, who I don't want to remember. I don't want. Like, there's some names out there. We talked about this on Candyman, how there are 2 kinds of people that get remembered for eternity: the truly great or the truly evil. Yeah. And it's So, like, Martin Luther King will remember forever. We'll also remember Hitler.
Right.
And maybe that's so history doesn't repeat itself kind of thing, lesson. I don't know. I'm getting on a tangent here.
I kind of want to read Gary's Wikipedia page after this is over, though.
Oh, yeah, you should go for it. That quid pro quo scene is so good. It's one of the best scenes in the entire movie, where it's Latin for, like, I don't know what it directly translates to, but it's like, I say something, you say something. And it's like, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. So the quid pro quo scene is where Hannibal has does he know? How early does he know who Buffalo Bill is? From the beginning?
I think from the beginning, because he was his because he
was
his
his
patient.
doctor.
So,
That's right.
Yeah, he knows the whole time. He just wants to bargain to get as much as he can. He wants to get out. So, because for some reason I was thinking at first like he just likes to play these games, but it's like no, he wants to get out of prison. So that's why he can't give it all away.
Yeah,
and he's realized to give it bit by bit. Yeah, so he was his patient. So that's part of that's the reason why they go to him, basically.
Yeah, and your explanation makes a lot of sense. The reason he's drip feeding this information and almost false information is because that is his one weapon to get out of that prison. He's been in
brilliantly.
Yeah, and he's realized that Dr. Chilton and Jack Crawford are dead ends. They're never going to do anything. This new person, Clarice, is this first new person he can play with, and that's ultimately what gets him out of there. So that's a good point. I like that. But the quid pro quo scene is where we get the lamb story. So this movie's called Silence of the Lambs, and it sounds so bizarre. It's like it has nothing to do with lambs. You would think it was maybe a kid's movie if you just read it on a marquee or something. But the actual silencing of the lambs is a metaphor for Clarice quieting her. How do I communicate this? It's a metaphor for Clarice maturing and escaping. Like she's been running from this metaphoric crying lamb for years, and only after all of this, that's what Hannibal says, have the lambs stopped crying.
Yeah, I mean she wants to save. If she saves Catherine, the lambs will stop. She'll stop hearing the screaming.
Because Catherine is the lamb.
Past, yeah, for sure. Also, because when I'm writing dialogue, I was transitions can be hard when trying to get from point A to point B. But I love the transition of
Are you gonna say what I think?
Hannibal mentioning that there'll be turns on the island.
Yes,
and he's like, and there'll be turns for us too. It's so good.
It is really good, and it's not as ham-fisted. It's great. When Clarice was a kid, she went to Montana because her dad died from. I missed the line, but her dad surprised some people that were robbing a convenience store.
So I assume he was
and they shot him, and then he died over the course of a month. And so she had to move to Montana. And I guess I'll share this. It's kind of embarrassing, but in my head, I was sure before rewatching this that the reason she left the farm and took the lamb or whatever wasn't because they were being slaughtered. It was because she was being molested. But that wasn't the movie.
No. That is what Hannibal suggests that happened.
That's right.
Yeah. So he's like,
he's
did
guessing.
He sodomize you? And she was like, no. He was a decent man. I can't do the accent. I don't know. That wasn't a good.
No, it's so funny.
That was just a generic Southern one.
No. When I was watching it and he does his accent, I was like, that sounds easy. I'll try. And mine always comes out as Florida Panhandle.
Oh yeah.
Whereas his is more like Savannah. I don't know. Yeah.
But no, so it was just they were mad that she stole the lamb. But okay, honestly, that guy, he should have he just is gonna give her to foster care because she's a little girl and wanted to save a lamb. He's a horrible person. I feel like that is kind of swept under the rug, but he's not a good guy. She's like, he's a decent man, but he's clearly not. If that was the straw that made him send her away,
because she didn't run away. She failed in running away, and they bring him back, young. And then she's sent away.
I know. It's what. Yeah. So I was just like, farmers. Wow, he's an asshole.
No, he really is. And despite it, she still is able to be a good person.
Yeah, exactly. She overcomes her past.
I love that the senator deal was a fake, and that's how he's able to get to that cage. I want to give a shout out to those two cops that get their faces. Lieutenant Boyle gets beaten with a nightstick, and Sergeant Jim Pembry gets his face cut off. And it's a shame. I was watching this, I was rewatching it, and I wish I didn't remember what happened, because the way they film it, there's two great moments in this movie where the way the direction and the editing is done, it leads you to believe one thing, and then at the last moment there's a big surprise. So the first one is when they find the two police officers and Hannibal has escaped. The big twist is Hannibal was in the room the whole time. He was wearing one of the police officers' faces,
so
and
good.
that's so freaking cool. And once again, referenced in The Office when Dwight.
I love that scene. I think that's one of the funniest Office scenes.
Where he's like,
the CPR.
I didn't. Why did you have to cut the face off of the dummy? I didn't think it was realistic in the movie. Turns out it's pretty realistic.
If a man has no arms and legs, should we even bother saving him?
I mean, what kind of life is that? So it's amazing. The second one is the big one where Jack Crawford calls Clarice, or maybe it's the other way around, but they communicate that Jack says, "We found him.
Yeah.
You're done. We'll take it from here." And so we get these shots of Buffalo Bill underground, and the police are surrounding his house. And there's the there's the flower guy walking up to the door, and he presses the doorbell. And as he's pressing the doorbell, concurrent is this like mechanism that he's worked in so he can hear it down there, this bell. And so he starts freaking out, and he's putting his clothes on, and he's trying to shut Catherine up. The doorbell's ringing. He's trying to get there. The police are like, "All right, you ready?" He opens the door, and it's Clarice.
I love that scene. I think it's one of the best best edited scenes I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I like always want to put a scene like that into like in one of my recent scripts. I was like, can I do that? 'Cause
That's what I thought.
It's so cool.
I want to write something like that. Is what I thought.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, easier said than done, but yeah,
Definitely.
I remember seeing that for the first time and just being blown away.
Because, like, emotionally, too, you're set up for this release, like, okay, they're finally going to catch him. It's going to happen. Clarice has been written out for some reason, but they're going to finally get him.
Yeah.
And then, poof, the tension is so much higher than we expected. And it, like, gets even higher as, you see her realize that it's him, and you see him realize that she knows it's him. And he runs off into the kitchen and he grabs that giant gun. Then she goes down to the basement and there's the night vision. He kills the breakers and the night vision chase is so good. He's right in front of her.
Yeah.
And it's pitch black and he can't tell. And I wonder how realistic that is. Like, I feel like even in a pitch black room, if you had your hand here, something would be able to tell me. Just like I can feel when someone enters a room.
Yeah,
you know?
I don't know. I think maybe there's so much else going on
She's panicked,
she's panicking. There's
There's
it's
a girl
understandable.
down
Some like the woman screaming. So I get it, and I think.
No, you're right. I'm picking holes. Yeah, I'm being
No,
nitpicky.
yeah, I think it does work. I mean, just because I feel like when. I have really no experience with guns, but it's like she has the gun pointed at him, but he sees that she's not ready to shoot it, which is why he runs off. So it's kind of like you think well, if he has the gun cocked, he would be able to shoot her, but it's also just she's trained for these scenarios and she was ready then. So
it's also an interesting plot point that the kind of gun he has does not require to be pulled back. It's double action.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So I don't know if that's a character thing of he's just stupid and did that, and that's what caught him, or he didn't know. But that's apparently a common thing in movies. Is 90% of guns are double action, which means you don't actually have to cock them back. But it's such a cool thing to do in movies, where you're and you pull the gun back. It's he's serious. That's always the thing they do is they're holding the gun to your face. You're not going to do it. Cock back. Oh, he's going to do it.
Yeah.
So let's see. I think that's about everything. So I'd love to talk about some of these themes. We already touched on hating one's identity. Buffalo Bill and Clarice both hate who they are, but one of them is able to turn that into something positive, whereas the other one lets it destroy them and everyone around them. And I mentioned it earlier, being thrown into the lion's den, but I wrote this down here of being a lamb among lions, because that's literally what happens. Occasionally, Clarice is shot from high angles, surrounded by men. And it's this intentional way of showing she's the trainee here, even in this room of police officers. She's still below them, but has to portray that, and she even condemns Jack for it later. When she's like, it matters. The other people in that room look to you, and they to how to act, and it matters.
I don't know what the real height difference is, but they always just make her look almost childlike in comparison, just tiny compared to everyone else. And I think it's really well done.
And so I wonder if that was in the script, or if that was a directorial choice, or if that's even in the book.
I'm not sure. Probably, maybe I'm sure directorial choice.
Sure. And then something else I noticed is that Jack Crawford and Hannibal both act as mentors to Clarice. Like they're both giving her information. They both give her pieces of information before sending them into situations. When Jack Crawford initially tells Clarice to go interview Hannibal, he doesn't tell her it has anything to do with Buffalo Bill.
Yeah.
It's just a questionnaire, and that's how she learns. So they're both giving her these pieces of information. In the case of Hannibal, it's wordplay and riddles. In the case of Jack, it's just lack of information, so that she can reach conclusions of her own, which is really the best kind of mentor.
Yeah, for sure.
You don't want someone who's going to hold your hand and just like write the answers in for you. You want someone who's going to give you the tools to do it. But for Hannibal to assume a role as a mentor to Clarice, both like just from a man-woman perspective, but also from a law enforcement criminal perspective, is a beautiful dance.
Yeah.
You can tell Clarice is kind of enticed by it too. Like she does admire him in a weird, perverse way.
I think it's kind of interesting how, usually you think villain antagonists are the same, but in this case, Hannibal's a villain, but he's not the antagonist. Buffalo Bill is the antagonist. So it's interesting that like this notorious villain is like his real role is like helping the hero, and I just think that's interesting.
Structure-wise, it is interesting where the main, like he's on the cover of a lot of times. He's on
so
the
you
posters.
think he's the one that if you had gone in not knowing anything about this movie, which is like I assume not. Most people know something about Silence of the Lambs, but yeah, I'm sure when it came out, they're like, oh, he must be the one that.
You might even assume that, actually, that would have been interesting. I didn't watch the trailers, but I wondered if they were edited in a way to make it seem like Hannibal was the one putting women in pits and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, if you had never seen the movie and only heard it referenced, you might have thought that Anthony Hopkins' Hannibal was the one that says it puts the lotion on its skin or else gets the hose again.
Yeah.
Which is another interesting thing. I didn't write that down, but the way he talks to Catherine... It puts the lotion on its skin. It does this whenever it's told.
Yeah.
And he always calls her it, and in the third person. And so in my mind, it's a response to the mother that goes on TV and uses her name a lot, and they're all like, "That's so smart. She's humanizing her in the killer's mind." Is that how you interpreted it?
Yeah, definitely. I think he is like a. I don't even know if Buffalo Bill is a psychopath or a sociopath, because if he was truly a sociopath, it wouldn't matter if she had a name.
Yeah.
But he can't. He can't give her a name, because then what he's gonna do is gonna be too hard. So like, he's clearly done awful things, but I don't know. You see that
he's not without compassion.
Yeah, he has a small sense of compassion.
He has the dog.
It's interesting. Yeah, he likes has his dog, and it's like he needs to do this. So it's interesting that he is still struggling with it. It's not like he's just someone who is just doesn't think about it. Like it kind of, you can see it's kind of torturing him.
Yeah, and I think,
hearing the screaming too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like he's crying. Like he needs to do it because he thinks he hates himself. He thinks he has to. Yeah, and that's the real core of true psychosis. But yeah, you're right. He's not without compassion, and I wonder, like, what is, like, obviously he's a crazy person, but like, what is his end game? If he was to do this like unhindered until he was able to make that suit, would he then walk out into the world in a woman's suit?
I would assume so. Yeah,
and obviously it wouldn't bring him the peace that he thinks, but that's what he's
for sure
building toward. We see it in the corner at one point.
Yeah,
and it's pretty done. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I also forgot that you see the half done, like the suit almost done with it, except for like missing an arm.
Yeah.
I would assume he would just walk out with it and realize he's probably not getting the reception that he thought he would, or isn't feeling the way he thought he would. I was reading about this at the time because it was protested by a lot of LGBT members back
I'd love
then.
you brought this up. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it is controversial, and I don't think it could be made today, because it is. They do try to make it a point that he.
I was surprised at that line. Yeah,
they're like he's not a true transsexual.
Transsexuals are passive,
but that is kind of like from a 2019 standpoint, that is also kind of offensive. But I think I don't know. I think for 1991, they were trying to be progressive, and Jonathan Demme has gone on record saying like, I apologize if or he was like, he wished he would have made the contrast clear that they weren't trying to portray a trans person negatively.
That's the thing, is that on paper it doesn't look good. It sounds really problematic.
Yeah, exactly.
But in context and watching the movie, they even explain, in my opinion, he is not a transsexual. He's not gay.
Right.
He's not an LGBTQ person. He is a psychotic man who,
exactly.
through his psychosis, has confused himself into believing he is a transsexual.
Yeah, definitely.
And in that way, actual transsexuals should not take offense. He is a sick man. And that's my opinion.
Yeah.
I could easily see an argument for how this is problematic and would take, a lot of dumb people's perception of transsexuals way back in their mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure their perception wasn't good to begin with, but I don't think it helped. I don't know. I mean, I guess tough. I do think in that way maybe the movie is problematic, but I don't hear when I hear the term like problematic, I don't always think like, oh, that means it's a it's a bad movie, it's horrible. It's just like, it's a time. I don't know. I don't want to say like times are different, but I think you can recognize, maybe I could see how that people could be offended by that. I could see how maybe that isn't great and still think that it's a brilliant movie with great characters and a great villain. And I do think that I do think the twist works really well. Like that's why he's building a suit.
Are you trying to decide of whether or not this movie should be canceled because of its
no, I will never let it be canceled.
Well, because that's an interesting question. Is like, Woody Allen movies. There are certain pieces of our media that are created by people that we've now learned are monsters. And so where is the line? Where do you burn all of this art that was created because it was made by a bad person or allowed them to do bad things?
Yeah.
And where do you separate that and go, well, this movie didn't rape anyone. Like, the movie itself still stands on its own and contributes in some way. I feel like it's just contextualizing it. Just like, if you sit down at a Woody Allen movie, there should be a disclaimer at the beginning that says, just so you know, Woody Allen did this, and this.
Yeah.
You decide if he's a good person or not. Yeah. Story begins.
Yeah, I mean, I do not think it should be canceled. I just think, we need to go into these movies with an open mind and, I don't know. I don't think you have to look at intention. I don't think the intention was to be I don't think they had ill intentions in any way. I think they definitely tried to make it clear that this person was just a psychotic serial killer, not a member of a particular identity.
Yeah. I mean, he hates himself.
I don't know.
That. And that actually, like, it plays more into it because a lot of people who identify as transsexual, I imagine, go through a period of hating themselves.
Yeah.
And so, like, that, never mind. Maybe I'll just move on.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky subject. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know the answer, but I think it's...
I think it comes down to the individual, and I think, personally, it comes to timing. Like, if you enjoy Louis C.K. and you watched all of Louis and you did this stuff, and then you learned that, he's a Time's Up person and Me Too and all of that, I feel like from the point you learned, you can't watch anything else. But everything before that point where you learned what a horrible person he was is still fair game. Because you didn't know. Nobody knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean...
that's just personally.
I feel like I can still watch things made by horrible people and, I don't know, not be that affected by it. I don't know, because...
It just feels weird when I'm supporting them.
Yeah,
because I don't want to support them.
Yeah.
Like, I can still watch a thing, but it's hard, especially now. Like, if I just owned a VHS and I watch it, I'm not giving someone money. But if I watch it on Netflix, I am supporting them.
Yeah. And I do just want to make it clear that, like, nobody, as far as I know, nobody who's made this movie has had any like...
Oh, no.
I don't feel bad supporting any person in this movie because
no one has been Me Too'd.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a... No, yeah. I
hope never.
Hopefully never.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It is a tricky subject. I don't know. I guess you just have to separate the art from the artist, but easier said than done.
I guess. My final theme that I wrote here is that intelligence is power. That Hannibal's a genius, and despite Dr. Chilton's literal walls around him, or the police's restraints and everything around him, at no point in the movie does he not have power.
Right.
He always has all of the power, even when he's in a straitjacket and got a muzzle on and all of that. And it's so cool because at the end of all of it, despite being in a super prison for 8 years, he still is superior to Dr. Chilton. And Dr. Chilton hates him for it and tries to kneel him in little ways. But Hannibal is a genius, and he has all the power, and those in and of themselves do not make a good person.
Yeah.
In fact, it can make a terrible person.
Yeah, exactly.
In the case of Hannibal Lecter. So, that's the story of Hannibal from Silence of the Lambs. The movie inspired a sequel called Hannibal. It came out in 2001, a prequel, Red Dragon, and then the other prequel, Hannibal Rising, where they had definitely established him as an anti-hero before the NBC show premiered in 2013, ending in 2015. And then finally, there was a musical, Silence.
There was. Oh, wow.
Silence, the musical. It's an unauthorized parody adaptation of the musical, but I would love to see that.
Which one was the brain eating? Have you seen the brain eating scene? Maybe that's Hannibal.
That's Hannibal, where he's eating Ray Liotta's.
Yeah,
where he's eating Ray Liotta's brain. That's at the end of Hannibal. He's cooking it, and then he feeds it to Ray Liotta. He cooks his own brain and feeds it to him. Yeah. So, last thing we like to do on the Gory Days is we rate our film on a scale of 1 to 5 thumbs, 1 being the worst and 5 being the best, on any criteria you want. What'd you think of Silence of the Lambs, Michael?
5.
Thumbs.
I picked it because it was 5 thumbs, but yes, 5 thumbs.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And typically we award those 5 thumbs to characters in the movies. You can give all 5 to one person, or you can split them up. Who are you awarding your 5 thumbs to?
I'm going to distribute it pretty evenly. Okay. Let's see. I'll give a thumb to Jodie Foster,
nice.
A thumb to Anthony Hopkins, a thumb to Jonathan Demme, a thumb to the composer Howard Shore,
nice.
And a thumb to Ted Levine.
Oh, I thought you were going to leave him out. Awesome.
No, of course. No, he's great.
He's so good.
Yeah.
And I don't recognize him from other stuff. What else has he been in? He seems so recognizable.
I don't know what else he's been. I know I've seen him before. I've seen Catherine Martin in random things. I can't remember exactly what, but like as an adult, it's like kind of weird.
Oh, it's funny.
I mean, she's probably like, she's somewhere in her 40s now, but I know I've seen her randomly pop up.
She's got one of those faces.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, me? What did I think?
Oh, yeah.
I love this movie. I'm so glad you brought it to me because it had been such a long time since I saw it, and I misremembered things, none of which were the ending, unfortunately. I wish I'd forgotten that because it's so great, that surprise at the end. The music is great. The direction is great. Every single scene with Hannibal is amazing. Every single scene with Ted Levine is amazing. Honestly, there are no boring parts in this movie. There's no part where I want to skip and go like, okay, well, what happens next? Everything is great, and it's this long mystery that's being unraveled from both ends as they meet in the middle. It's beautiful. So I'm also going to give this movie 5 thumbs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's a great movie. And I'm going to award my thumbs. I'm going to give one to... I'm going to give one to Buffalo Bill for sure, because he's going to need one. I'm going to give one to Hannibal...
Has to complete his suit.
Exactly. He's going to need it to sew up his suit. I'm going to give one to Hannibal Lecter so that he can properly squeeze out one of Dr. Chilton's eyes. I'm going to give one to Clarice Jodie Foster because she is absolutely amazing. How many is that? Is that 3 so far?
Yeah.
I'll give one to Catherine because she was so great at the bottom of there. Her screams and just how good she is. And her freaking ingenuity of getting the dog to go down there. Like, I don't think... Did the bucket ever end up working? It kind of looked like she just kind of coerced the dog to fall down on its own because the bucket thing didn't work. And
yeah, I don't know. It might have worked off screen. We never see it working, so I assume she tried again. I'm
still impressed that she thought of that.
Yeah.
And then I'll give my final thumb to Precious because she'll need that little Duclaw. I don't know. I don't know why I feel like I have to explain why I'm giving them to people. I'm giving out my thumbs.
She gave a great performance too.
Yeah, she really did. She really did. So that's the story of Silence of the Lambs. Michael, is there anywhere people can find you online where people would want to follow up on your work or anything? Or on Twitter or Instagram?
Well, yeah, hopefully they can follow up with my work soon. Let's see. I'm on Twitter, Batches789.
We'll put that in the description.
Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, that's it for now. Hopefully I'll have some more updates in the next couple months.
Awesome. All right, well, without further ado, that is everything for us here on the Gory Days. Talk to you next time. Stay scary out there.
Gory Days. The Gory Days.